Hi everyone. Today we are going to solve a DI caselet from a previous year CAT paper. It's pretty much a legendary set. It went by the name Naya Purana in CAT. We've slightly modified it. Let's go ahead and crack the set. A bar graph is given with some information on the right. Let's read the information first. The union government manufactures two types of products, feel good and Achche Din. I can see feel good here. I can see Achche Din here. Feel good is represented by the solid shaded bar. Achche Din is represented by the slantly shaded bar. Understandable. Two types of products. Every year, the government sells all the products that it manufactures in that particular year, which means that there'll be no spillover for next year. Whatever I manufacture this year, I'll sell this year itself. That's also very clear to understand. The production of feel good commenced in 2012. So I don't really know what exactly is going on here, but I feel that there should have been a bar for 2012 as well somewhere here, something like that. But it's just something that I'm thinking in my mind for now. Also, it has been written that exactly 20% of the quantity of feel good sold in a year is discarded exactly 2 years later. Let's say in 2012 I produce 100 units of feel good. If I produce 100, I'll sell 100. That's been mentioned earlier itself. So exactly 2 years later, that is in 2014, how much will be discarded out of this 100? Exactly 20% will be discarded. That means 20 units will be discarded. Another 20% of the total, so not of remaining, of the total, so this 100, another 20% is discarded in the next year. So 2015, another 20% is discarded, and so on. If I keep discarding like this, then I can discard 20% only 5 times, because 20% into 5 is 100%. So that means 2016, 2017, 2018. If I keep discarding 20%, then by the end of 2018, all these 100 units that would have been sold in 2012 would be discarded by the end of 2018. And correctly so, something is written to that effect itself. What is written? So that the entire quantity of feel good manufactured in a year is completely discarded exactly at the end of 6 years. So 2012, 6 years later, 2018, completely discarded, which means what I've understood is correct at least till this point. But this was only a hypothetical assumption on my part that 100 units were produced in 2012. For now, I don't know that, so I'll just take this much part down. It is also known that the government manufactured at least 75 units of feel good each year. Okay, so that means every year at least the production was 75. So in 2012 also, I cannot say the production was 5 or 10 units or something like that. The production must have been at least 75. And the government did not manufacture the same quantity in any 2 years. That means every year the production was distinct. That much also I understand. It's written exactly 20% of the quantity. Now see, exactly 20% of the quantity means 1/5. I hope you remember your fractions. 20% is 1/5. So 20% of the quantity should be an integer, because the number of units that I am discarding cannot be a fraction, which means the production in any year must be a multiple of 5. 5x, let us say. Only then I will be able to calculate exactly 20% of it. Which means in 2012, if the production was not 75, it cannot be 76, 77 or something like that. Next possible value will be 80 only, and so on, multiples of 5. We'll keep that in mind. There's something given about Achche Din also. So let's read about Achche Din now. The production of Achche Din started in 2014. The graph here starts in 2014 for Achche Din. That seems decent. and it feels like Achche Din will be easier to solve because the graph is given from the very beginning, unlike the concept of feel good. So probably I'll try to tackle questions on Achche Din before solving questions for feel good. Now, does that concept of all manufactured being sold in the same year apply for Achhe Din also? Let me read again. Every year, the government sells all the products that it manufactures in that particular year. Okay, all the products. And it manufactures two types of products, feel good and Achhe Din, which means that it is applicable not only for feel good but also for Achhe Din. 25% of units of Achhe Din that are sold in a year are discarded exactly 2 years later. Again, I can conclude that the production of Achhe Din should always be a multiple of 4, like the production of feel good should have been a multiple of 5. So for example, if any year 100 units are manufactured, exactly 2 years later 25 units will be discarded. Another 25% of the total is discarded in the next year. So 25% can be discarded only 4 times. So if in 2014 100 units were manufactured, 2 years later, that means 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, each of these 4 years 25% will be discarded, and by the end of 5 years it will be completely discarded, so that the entire quantity of Achhe Din manufactured in a year is completely discarded at the end of 5 years. This is exactly what I had understood, which means by now I've got a hold on the set. Let's also read what is this bar graph representing, because till now we don't know whether it is sales or what. The bar graph below gives the number of units of these products that were in use by the citizens in the given years. So this is not a bar graph of sales or production. This is a bar graph of products that were in use by the citizens in the given years. In use means we will not count the ones that are discarded, but we will not count only the ones sold in that year. We will count the ones that were sold in previous years as well. Okay, let's try to build up. Let's also take a look at the questions before going ahead. So this question is about feel good. This question is also about feel good. This question is also about feel good. This question is about Achhe Din. At least one question is about Achhe Din. How many units of Achhe Din were manufactured by the end of 2017? Achhe Din in use in 2014 were 120. And because the manufacturing of Achhe Din started in 2014, that means all these 120 units were manufactured in 2014 itself. Okay, I'll just put a small tab on that. How many were manufactured in 2014? 120. Okay, so now 2 years later 25% will start getting discarded. Let me also keep track of what were discarded. So 2 years later, that means 2016, 25% of 120, that is 30. These many units will be discarded in 2016, 17, 18 and 19. Okay. Now, in 2015, how many products are in use? 300 products are in use, out of which 120 were in use by the previous year itself, which means the new units produced in 2015 will only be the remaining 180 units. I hope that's clear. So how many units were produced in 2015? 180 units. Let's also keep a track of how many were discarded. So exactly 25% of 180, that means 45 were discarded 2 years later, and so on. Now 300 units were in use by 2015, out of which by the time we started 2016, 30 units were disposed of. That means 300 minus 30, 270 units would have carried forward here from the previous years, which means in this year 330 minus 270, 60 units were manufactured. So 25%, 15 units 2 years later. Now out of the 330 units that were in use in 2016, 30 and 45, 75 units will be discarded in 2017. So 330 minus 75, 255 units will still be in use from the previous years. So in 2017, the number of units manufactured and sold should be 355 minus 255. That is 100. 25%. So that should be the entire arrangement for Achche Din. And if I have properly formed it, then I should get the correct answer for question number 3 based on Achche Din. Let's just check. What was the question? How many units of Achche Din were manufactured by the end of 2017? 120 plus 180, 300, 360, 460. The total should be 460. Let's check. Indeed, 460 is our answer. So that means we have properly formed the arrangement for Achche Din. Now using the same logic, we should be able to solve questions for feel good as well. The only problem being that I don't know the number of units manufactured in 2012. Let's explore. Rereading once. The number of units produced is equal to number of units sold for any year. Exactly 20% of it will be discarded exactly 2 years later, and so on. Any year the number of units of feel good was at least 75, and the number of units was distinct for every year. So let me quickly make a small bar for myself for the year 2012. Let us say the production in 2012 was X units. So 20% of X will be discarded from 2014, but no units will be discarded in 2013, which means if 200 units were in use, out of the 200 units, X units would have been from the previous year. Hence, this year in 2013, produced and sold should be 200 minus X. So 20% of 200 minus X. Now this seems like a very cumbersome procedure. So instead of taking X, I'll start with 75, as they had given that the minimum number of units produced any year was 75. And instead of doing this, I feel like the better approach should be using 75. Let us say in 2012, number of units manufactured was 75. Then the number of units discarded, exactly 20%, should be if 75 units were manufactured in 2012, they would have been in use in 2013 as well. So out of 200 units in use, 75 were from previous year, hence 125 were from this year. 20%, 25. Out of the 200 units in use, 15 were to be discarded. That means 200 minus 15, 185 will continue to be in use, which means the new units produced in 2014 should be 284 minus 185. 284 minus 185 is 99. If the production here is 99, then 20% is 19.8. But this is not possible. Hence, 75 cannot be the value of production in this year. I realize that because of this catch. Now, I can keep on doing values like 80, 85, 90, 95 and so on. But instead, I can also think about something that's going to play here because of this value being 284. If this value is 284 and this value must be a multiple of 5, because the production must be a multiple of 5, then this value must be 284 minus 5x. 284 minus 5x means it can be values like 279, 274, 269 and so on. But I also know in my minimum case 75, when minimum 15 were discarded, 200 minus 15, 185 were in use. The number of products in use from previous years cannot be more than 185, which means 284 minus 5x is less than 185. Now less than 185 But of the series 279, 274, 269 and so on, I hope you can understand that the value, next value less than 185 will be 184, next should be 179. Pause here and think about what I am saying. Otherwise, you'll have to keep on making a lot of cases which will consume a lot of time. The largest possible value for this is 184. So I'm starting with 184. 200 units were in use in 2013, out of which only 184 were in use in 2014. That means the number discarded should be 200 minus 184, 16. Number of units discarded must be 16, which means a total of 80 units would have been produced in 2012. If 80 units were produced in 2012, then 2013 the production should be 200 minus 80, 120, 20%, 24. Out of these 200 units, 16 were discarded and hence 184 were in use in 2014. So out of the 284 in use, 184 were from previous years, hence production in this year must be 100. 20%, 20. Now, out of the 284 in use in 2014, 16 plus 24, 40 will be discarded in 2015. So 284 minus 40, 244 will be in use in 2015. Out of 369, 244 is from previous years. So 125 must be this year's production. 125, 20%, 25. Now, out of these 369 products in use, 60 products will be discarded in 2016. So 369 minus 60, 309. 309 products will be continued next year. Out of 449, 309 is from previous years, which means 140 is the production this year. 20%, 28. 449. Out of these, 85 will be discarded. Out of 474, 364 is from previous years, which means 110 is the production. 20%, 22. Notice that we have followed this last instruction. Feel Good did not manufacture the same quantity in any 2 years. 80, 120, 100, 125, 140, 110 are all distinct values. However, this is only one arrangement. There may be more arrangements which we'll have to check. I hope you remember this arrangement came because we assumed that the number of units discarded was 16 because we took the value here to be 184. The next possible value in this series was 179. I leave that up to you as a small assignment to make the arrangement taking this value to be 179. You will realize that there will be a contradiction because you will not get distinct quantities of manufacturing in every year. There will be no other case which will get you to the point that this is the final case that we have made. Now, let's solve the questions. How many units of Feel Good were manufactured in 2012? In 2012, the number of units manufactured was 80, which means the answer should be none of these. How many units of Feel Good were discarded in 2016? 2016 discarded 16 plus 24, 40 plus 20, 60. Answer. How many units of Feel Good were manufactured by the end of 2016? Manufactured by the end of 2016. 80 plus 120, 200, 300, 425, 565. 565. That's your answer. I hope you practice more sets like this and become comfortable with such concepts. Thank you. Have a great day.